We're super excited to host Alessio Grancini. He's senior AI prototype engineer at Magic Leap. I got a chance to meet him at AWXR, and it was like he was super busy at the exhibit, but it was such an inspiring journey to see how, coming from architecture background, he's doing this kind of stuff. So, first of all, thanks a lot for setting such kind of precedent for the students and the young people who are considering to take this path.
Thanks to you for having me. Really, I think that I've been through the journey. I've been going through a lot of things until getting to the position that I really wanted to be in for AR, and I'm really happy to share all of what I can share to empower everyone that wants to try the same. Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, so like before moving into deep dive, we would like to know a bit about your background and journey. So can you share like three highlights of your career till date?
Definitely. So let's see where we can start with. So definitely one highlight for me in my career is like being in architecture. I think you have a lot of chances to explore a lot of media of representation and visualization. Um, since I attended SciArc, which is a pretty cutting edge school based in LA, and they really try to do just things differently. Like they experiment a lot. They have a very anti traditional architecture approach to everything. It's really architecture, but it also not architecture. What you do at Zaire. So what I was very interested in learning was animation at that time. So which is not too long ago. But yeah, like instead of like representing projects through like still images or like uh, renders that can just like transpose or communicate one specific part of the project, I would rather just go full in and make an animation, which is an approach that I see doing more and more now. I can see like in a lot of competition is required the video. And the interesting thing about the difference between images and videos is that videos it comes with a lot more work in a way that an image, like you need to prepare uh, basically all of the world. You need to build a world, and then you need to just like start to um, direct your kind of takes. And sometimes I have to say like things were a lot to do. So I started, like I think that where they came in like a VR visualization for me. I was like, what about doing all of this work that I'm doing, but instead of doing like some takes, doing a real time visualization that felt very natural to me and really like the proper solution to be like the simplest solution. Um, so yeah, like I was exploring. So this is, let's say, the first thing. Like I'm trying to split in three. Like if you asked me the question, and the second thing was very connected to the first one, and it was I was doing my internship in Milan in 2014, and I was working for a very very traditional architecture firm. In Italy, architecture is pretty much like there is a lot of cutting edge stuff, but I mean, not at the level that you find in US or somewhere else. And they were interested in looking into grasshopper, new technologies. There were some VR. Someone was talking about VR and AR, not really like defining what was it and how to utilize it in the practice. There's a lot of speculation in architecture. Everyone says like, let's do AI or let's do steel, let's do that, let's cross this all of this world together, which is super exciting. But you really struggle to go into the detail of what actually you're doing. So I was like very interested in understanding what how to use VR. So the VR visualization architecture for me, the experimentation I had started from there. And the third experience was really also connected to this last one, was an internship I did in a VR game company, because I was so interested in the media that when I moved to US, I was like, first thing I want to do if I have a chance to do an internship is definitely in the game company, and I want to see how these people do it. I want to see the pipelines for developing a game. I want to see how many people are involved in making something, like how they scale this product, um, just how things work. Like I was really, really just interested. And I was in this little company which was making a VR game for kids for an aquarium in New Orleans. And they were making this experience that would just like bring the kids into this kind of world underwater and would educate them to clean the oceans, clean the reefs. And it was super, super, quite amazing experience for me because I got to touch so many tools that they used, like from Unity and Premise, all of the headset at that time they were using Samsung, the one that you plug into your headset, and it really let me understand what was the limitation of the medium, like trying to create scenes that are very optimized, like how to think in geometry in terms of like how to create worlds that are different from quite a lot different from architecture, because architecture is very heavy. Usually when you create a model of a building, it's a very heavy file. You have a lot of layers. Instead, in games you can just get around with a lot of tricks, right? Because whatever you see is what matters. There's nothing behind it. So yeah, those differences was very revelatory for me, and I was like, oh, okay, so this is really how they do it. Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome. Like I was just like drawing parallels. So when you mentioned about doing that internship in VR game company, like what are like some things you could like use your computational thinking from architecture, and what are some things you had to undo in like in the gaming studio?
So I initially been hired because really because of the architecture skill in the really like core sense of the word. Like they were doing this pavilion for the aquarium, and they needed someone to draft um, a pavilion. So the pavilion was like some sort of like a big structure, and they, like not big deal. They already knew what they wanted to do. They just needed someone with the use of CAD's program like Rhinoceros or anything that would just like output some construction documents and interface with the builders. So that was my first role. But then they understood, they was like, oh, actually, like this stuff is very cool. Like you can do all the 3D model of our things and it's just super detailed. Like let's just drop it into Unity and let's see now in real time how does it look like. And I was like, yeah, why not? Why not? So that's where transition to a role that was more like, hey, let me just show you how this thing is going to look like. And since they were very active on the interaction side, so they had a lot of screens inside of this pavilion, they had a lot of specific things, like they have like a table with a lot of headsets that would just like get the power from certain like outlet. It was very detailed, so you could simulate everything in Unity. There were no dispersion. Like budgeting was very effective in that way. um, and then they started to improve, like they started to say, okay, so let's just start this approach also with other projects. And so they had another project that was more AR based, and even in that sense, I think modeling came very much into the picture because they were like, okay, we can really simulate things in real time, understanding the size of projectors, understanding the size of, like people, like panels that we need to build, and we can simulate some circulation of people around. So, crowding simulation. And yeah, it was really like useful, that's why
Mhm.
it came handy. Yeah, because sometimes like
It,
game developers know how to run simulation in a space, but not necessarily always they're interested in modeling that space. So that was the missing part.
I see. And that's a great insight, like because like if there's an architect who's interested in working in a game company, They can start at the content creation level and find their way up, and where if they're interested in game development, applications development, there are opportunities. You might not get that role in first place based on your background, but uh, this is how you can navigate. And there's like I always see like an interesting debate where for metaverse modeling, are architects more suitable versus game designers? Like, what are your quick takes on it?
Architect versus game designers.
Yeah, like for metaverse space development and experience development.
What's my take? So I think, well, I think architecture school has a very specific point of view when you're designing. Like the information that you consult and the information that you study during architecture school gives you very much a wide depth about precedents, historical, circulation programs, and you feel like you're more like continuing the work of these amazing artists that predecessor. Meanwhile, I feel like game designer is pretty much designing with a great creativity, but also thinking about aspect as performance, character circulation. I think those two are probably the most important. Like if you need to, for example, if you need to create like a collider strategy on a building, you want to know you know that the geometry of the building, you pretty much know already how the geometry of that building is going to look like, and what are the parts of the building that are going to be accessible from the character point of view, avoiding like gaps in the making of this. Like uh, buildings are very complex, so like I think that game developer definitely the approach is not, I can't call it more superficial because it's way more informed from an interactive point of view. But it's definitely like the faking aspect of things is pretty much accepted because the end goal is like letting your character moving in this structure. Meanwhile, of course, when you're doing an architecture project, they are questioning also the smaller corner in the room, right? They say, hey, where is the HVAC system? Where did you put it? Or why is that the windows there? But I have to say, like, Sire approach was pretty loose on that. Like, they were really like, just go crazy, like go crazy on your creativity side and then figure out things like that. Like, I always saw that at Sire, which sometimes a little dangerous, but can't deny it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that I could see like on Instagram all the outcomes produced by students, and definitely it stands out from other school in the way you guys approach like visuals. And coming back, you mentioned about like during the highlights how you were interested in XR, and like interest is one thing, but deciding I want to pursue my career in this field is another thing. So what were some major things which help you make that decision?
Well, I think that like I was very curious about like learning things I didn't know. Like this is like a general approach I have. When I see something and I quite don't understand how it works, I get very curious. I'm like, oh, how that? There is no way I'm not gonna know how that works. See, if I put myself into it, like it's just like a little bit of presumption, but I think is also curiosity, and it's like a very healthy way to say, okay, let's put ourselves there, and it's just like, okay, of course you cannot learn everything. Like that's a big field, and there is so much things in the world everywhere that you cannot. But in this instance, I thought that when I saw these guys developing in Unity, and they had in one screen like a lot of scripts, and in the other script a beautiful 3D view that would just like mirrors their progress. Basically, they were inputting text and then coming out amazing results. I was like, okay, I need to learn that. Like, I need to I need to learn how to make from my words amazing experiences, and that there is all of a world. Like, I feel like learning how to script learning all the environment, learning all the development stack. It's a world that just takes you and never spit you out, because you just like get into this rabbit hole. Every time you just need something more, you need to know more, you need to know more. And if you just start with Unity, which was my first thing and still my predominant tool that I use today, you will see that there is a language which is C sharp, and it's very intuitive. Uh, on a basic level, you can achieve a lot knowing the basics, I think. Of course, it gets more into details when you start to create levels of products that are kind of production level. So, like if you start to look into performance, or if you start to look into project that have a very a certain size, or like there's a team of people working on that specific projects, like that gets a little bit different. But as a solo developer, Unity gives you a lot of speed. Like you can do so much in so short amount of time. And a lot of that you can do it programmatically. So you don't even need to do something that like it needs to stay like we are. I think also there in another contrast in architecture, there were these things that when you do a model, pretty much that's it. Like you can't go back. You can use Grasshopper, you can have like parameters, but meanwhile, like with a generative approach to the things that you do, you have the chance to have a very effective way to create things on the go and very quickly, and say, okay, like I want to create this world with a forest there, and just I can just do it. So it gives you those powers that you would never have with like 3D modeling. It comes also with a lot of pros and cons. But yeah, I was really curious to learning how to script. It was something that I think generationally is changing everywhere. It's not just in architecture. I think it's computer science is a subject that should be taught to everyone. In elementary school. I think they do it here in US now in many schools. There's a lot of programs that are trying to implement that. Like I've been exposed rarely in my very young career, and I think I never got a grasp of how powerful is all of this discipline and how far you can go, because you can go very much like in very different directions, learning different languages, doing different work. There is all of a stack of things that you could do. Right now, I'm very interested in machine vision, and I'm really trying to learn things that are very low level, and just to understand how things work and relate them with my work, instead of just being executing always, because what's the risk when you don't know a lot. And yeah, it's just I feel like curiosity, and the fact that it really allows you to do things more powerfully, more effectively, and advance also the professions, in my opinion. I had a lot of pushback during school about this, and also um, in my architecture experience and in very good firms. And I was very surprised, because I was like, you aim to look into the future, you aim to be cross discipline, but you miss details that are very very important here. So you miss foundations. So that's why I try to push on that side. Yeah.
I see. And like, let's unpack a bit because, like you said, like looks sounds like you were like very self-taught in Unity development, and you mentioned there were challenges in the pushback side. So, what would be like an advice for people in that area who are in the same phase of struggle within their firm or within their school when they want to push the boundary on this side?
Well, how to put it? Like, first of all, like, I don't want this to be like taken the wrong way. Like, don't get me wrong when I say, "Oh my God, architecture, doesn't allow me to be who I want to be," or things. I think architecture is great. Like, I really enjoyed my years at SciArc. Like without that, I couldn't even probably be or doing things I do now. So it's really empowering my creativity, thinking, way to think, and all of these things. But I remember the first times I tried to make some, like in architecture schools, there is this kind of very well established practice of doing pinups on the wall. If you're an architecture student, you probably know everyone dresses nice. You go in the corridor or wherever is the room, and then these people start to criticize your work, and you're gonna defend your project, and you're gonna look, it's like a kind of like a staging practice, which is very fascinating because it kind of prepares you to communicate with a bunch of different people that can take your ideas or your language in a very different way. There are people that like you, people that don't like you, and you need to find always compromises. So I mean, socially is a very very interesting experience, but you also see the gaps and kind of the rigidity of the profession. I would say because I started with my thesis partner. His name is Runze Zhang, and he also works at TikTok now. So we were both very interested in AR, and we were like, we just do an AR pinup. So we didn't pin up anything on the wall, and we just say use the iPad, right? And at that time, even if it's not too long ago, I have to say, professor were like, what? Like, we're like on the iPad. I need to look at the wall with an iPad. Like, feels so inconvenient. Can you just like print it out so I can see it there? Or maybe something that they would say was like looking at the iPad was like, this looks very bad. This like looks not like what we're used to see, and they are referring themselves to render images where you have like 8 hours of Photoshop editing and probably ray tracing renders and like stuff in Cinema 4D that you render for 2 days in a row and then you modify it. So we were going in real time. We were like, no, we are just focusing on other aspects. We want to have like speed. We want to have prototyping, interpretation of things. We want to have overlay of informations, and we want to have like all of these, creating all of these environmental features that communicate a project instead of just having the project itself. And when I say we received a lot of pushbacks was like because they were not very used to see the medium of AR or VR. And there is also this kind of rigidity in the profession that even if it seems very open to technology, it's not really keeping the promise of implementing those technologies efficiently and in a scalable way. Like you can say I'm using AR or I'm using VR, but there is a difference between having a pipeline that allows people to work with you and improve your project and kind of like starting to think about what could be a product, how to engage your client, etc. And there is a difference in saying like I'm using VR and I just like download the SDK and I play a very basic scene and I say, we are doing VR. So that kind of different approach, I was like, no, we want to go deep here. We want to understand all of the nuances of the medium. We want to, we want to really learn, and we want to also learn because I think at school it's really important that you learn things.
Hmm.
And instead, I had the feeling that when I was in architecture school, you would just work for the purpose of producing a beautiful artifacts that would get a lot of compliments in a very short amount of time, kind of an instant gratification that you would be able to post on your social media and get a lot of likes, and professor would also like. And I was like, I think this is quite a short-term investment,
Hmm.
and we all know that when you start to work, you don't have time to do those explorations on Cinema 4D and making those nice stuff that you were doing as a student. Uh, so I was like, I can't afford myself to lose time now and arrive to a point in my career which is too late to come back and actually learning the things that I'm very interested in. So I think we took really like a very strong standpoint with our professors and we say, hey, like we really want to learn this stuff. It's really important for us, and if you give us the chance to learning it, we are gonna stay in your studio. Otherwise, we're just gonna do it, and we are not gonna get along. So fortunately, we found like very available features, very progressive features that empowered us with a lot of very incredible conversation that would bridge what architecture is and what could be in the future. So it was very an honor collaborating with these people that have so much experience and also imagination and very much like knowledge of aesthetic, coloring, like all of these things that architecture gives you, and also create your own style and difference when you go creating any sort of AR or VR experience, which is a game or an enterprise app, for solving a solution.
Oh man, that was such a thought-provoking thing you shared. Like instant gratification versus like lifelong, and also thinking about what is used in the industry. And I also think like right now I could see a lot of schools experimenting with new technologies, and then at the industry level, like there's a mismatch of how many roles that are open to use this newly learned skill from the student and apply it in the profession. And I wonder like how where the students end up like taking the job, and what kind of uh, technologies they are able to apply. So like, do you see the mismatch, or do what are your thoughts if how we can leverage this and make take advantage of students in the industry?
Well, I mean, let me formulate a little. So I speak from my experience, then I can't really talk broadly because I never worked in certain firms, and I'm pretty sure that certain firms are exploring things in different ways. I know the shop is very active on AR and VR. They have a lot of partnership with Unity. They have like a lot of work. I think Adam Chernick is the guy that is like holding all of that material there, and seems like I also had conversation with them in the past. It seems like they're very active and trying to make a difference. Um, I've seen a lot of mismatch generally between education and practice. I mean, that's no secret. Um, when you are at school, you have a very broad range of possibilities. Then when you are applying for jobs, you know that the main tool that in architecture is used is Revit, and learning Revit is 90% of your application as an architect. I've been lucky enough to be part of my 2 years at Morphosis. Morphosis is an architecture practice in LA and New York, which they do very incredible projects. They are, they're founded by Tom Main, pretty care architect, very well known in the community, founder of SciArc as well. Like, Morphosis is a great practice because it allows something that a lot of other firms don't allow, which is experimentation and very speculative approach on many things. And like with that approach, they were interested in understanding AR and VR. So they brought me on the team. They have this little team called Advanced Technology, which also a component of that team was a professor of mine at SciArc. Her name is Karenza Harris, and she taught me CATIA, and she she was very like cutting edge, like always like trying something new. Like I don't care what it is, like bring it in. Let's see how it goes. So I've been very lucky in that position to be the person, the AR and VR person in a full architecture firm that would just like regulate all of that flow of AR and VR applications. So we did quite a lot of interesting work for Milan Design Week. Um, in 2019, we did this multiplayer AR application that would allow to see projects and leave notes around. It would also allow to have some interaction with your peers behind around you. It was very interactive. It was a lot of fun. And so I thought in that moment that we kind of were making a difference, because like it was a lot of work in AR and VR that I'd never seen anywhere, and it was becoming a reference. And we published a lot of articles how to make, how to prepare models for AR and VR on Design Boom. Uh, it was very interesting experience. However, I saw that, like most of the office was really focusing on the real stuff. There was like building things. And I think in architecture there is this culture of kind of, I mean, it starts with a competition, which is also a very wrong, in my opinion, way to work in a project. You can't rely on a challenge every time, even if it's like, like you said, like I'm gonna win that competition. Like I feel like there is a mismatch between what's the economy that supports a tech company, for example, and an architecture firm. Like there is a very big mismatch between these two things. So I think that architecture shows a lot of different issues which in other practices that are more like a tech-based workshop. But I also try to multiple times to say, okay, let's try to do what we can, right? Like let's try to optimize our workflows. If we have a client, let's just give him an Oculus and let's just try to update our application remotely, and we're just gonna have like up-to-date models in there. We can use maybe Unity Reflect to bring the stuff from Revit into Unity and just like push a button, it's gonna update your model. I mean, I really try hard. I saw a lot of quite a lot of pushbacks sometimes because of how, not because people what people want to do, but how is more like establish the communication between different parties in the picture. Like for example, there is the need to have like printed documentation. There are this crazy amount of paper that is printed, and this kind of documentation, construction building documentation, which is, oh my gosh, like incredible amount of documents, incredible for a building. And morphosis is like, it goes very much to the detail, which is a great work. But I really question so many times and saying, hey, but there is not like maybe a better way to do this. Instead of printing the book that you can barely open because it's so tall that you can barely
Yeah.
like flip a page. I'm like, there's got to be a way to solve things in this way. So that I feel like they're kind of pushing on the practice also led me to say, okay, I want to be on the side of who's building solution for these practices, because I think now I'm doing my best, but I might not be in the right place. I might just bothering people at the start because if I just keep saying, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, I'm like, hey, we don't have time, we don't have resources, we don't have, it's not like the main focus. The main focus is building projects, and to maintain that excellence of quality. I understand that the architecture firm has also different priorities. So I was like, maybe my role is something that is more on the side of the developer that is enhancing and empowering the designer. So at that side, I was like, I still like design. Like I think my aesthetic, I will never lose it. My touch, but I like to. I really feel fulfilled, empowering someone else building a solution in that case. So that was the kind of climate that brought me there.
Yeah, Alessio, like, thanks for sharing. Like, that's such a powerful realization. Like, at some point, like, there's a limit how much you can push, but if you start developing your own applications, you can solve the problem at scale and impact much bigger community, and making that leap is a big step. So awesome. Like, I think like you like really well like mention all the challenges in your career, and how I wanted to do like a bit deep dive on your work at Magic Leap. And yeah, if you can share.
Just sure thing. So First of all, I think, you know, Magic Leap is an incredible place. I personally think that it's it's where I wanted to be since like before my thesis and during SciArc. Uh, I started to look at their work when they released like things like Nika or the Magic Verse. It was kind of this AI assistant that would talk to you, or they have this concept of the Magic Verse before what Facebook would kind of describe in the same way. These kind of layers of infrastructure in the city. Like it was really, really. I was like, wow, this is like so urban, so timely. It's like so impactful for our architecture. Like if there is a virtual system superimposed on the city, who should kind of have a dialogue that regulate that? Like why are not urban planners involved in this conversation? Why, as an architect or designer, I don't know much about what's going on. So I was really like, I was like, okay, things are pretty much radically changing here. Like there are like there is like some discourse of virtual property, and then it was not even the crypto boom at that time. So like NFT came very recently, but at that time I was like, okay, I can see this come. Like it's natural. It doesn't take a lot of effort to understand that what's going to happen next is going to have more weight on the virtual side of things. And maybe that's not the only thing that people are going to care about, but it's definitely something that is going to impact us in everyday life. And it's that, and you know, remote work is not a casual thing as well. We've been hit very hard by pandemic. Everything moved virtually. There has been a lot of chances for these companies to boom and to create new solutions from simple communication platforms to really like interaction platforms. I think communication is moving toward a more interaction based communication. It is moving toward a way where presence is one wants to be built and can and it's not just finalized to have presence and communication, but can really like be applied to so many other things. Like you know, like in the same application, you can cross-platform with something else, with something else. So Magic Leap, I think, had this vision locked down quite very early. They also provided this hardware solution, which was incredible. I don't know if you ever had the chance to try AR headsets, but without being biased, because now I work for them, but I've never experienced a better like AR experience. Of course, the only price to pay is this form factor that, you know, there are pros and cons. But when you put on those headsets, you understand, especially the new one that they just released, the Magic Leap 2, you understand that you could stay in those scenarios for hours and apply that to so many things, from entertainment, uh, for not buying a TV and just watching a movie shared with your screen and just like enlarge it to a size of, you know, a city. I we wanted to try this. We were like, why don't we just put like a couch in our balcony and just look outside in the sky and just like instantiate a movie on the sky? Like, how incredible would be that, you know? And it just like brings you to all of a level of understanding space. You know, like it's just like, oh my gosh, like let me look around in my room, what I can do. It's just so connected to the physical space, which there is a big impact. And I also appreciate that Magic Leap like shifted to a more enterprise focus, which is where I come from, um, because I think that the entertainment and gaming is super fun. I played a lot of games, but it's also important to prove that technologies can solve things that we need actually, like as a base, as a foundation. And I've seen a lot of potential in architecture and engineering industry. I remember in 2018, I did an hackathon at USC. Um, it was an hackathon shared between USC and MIT. And we won this hackathon with an application that was a merging between Autodesk Forge, Mira Lab. Mira was like this kind of AR headset that was created by USC, by some USC guys that then became very big. They're doing very well now, and that was basically Unity Reflect, what we created at that time. But it wasn't called Unity Reflect, and no one really, like, they probably, Unity made a research in the environment of um, industry, and they say, okay, so a lot of architects and designers are actually using Unity. So what if we do something that empower them and try to put together their things with ours? So they probably partners with Autodesk, and they created Unity Reflect, which is just a bridge between Autodesk and Unity. So that was a very smart move, in my opinion, and I think we envisioned it, and we were like, yeah, they're gonna do it clearly. And I think now Magic Leap is moving more in that niche of trying to build solutions, like really healthcare, transportation, learning, instructions, management of devices, and it's a vision that I particularly share. And I've been building so many apps on that line, that building apps like that, but make it also scalable, because you are supported by a very talented group of people around you, and things happen. Like, you just see, like, your work is just like your 20% of work uh, is enhanced to 100% in a company like that, because everyone wants to push in the same direction. They're trying to do the same. If you don't do something, someone else does it, and you do something for them. It's a continuous. It's a very good climate in our team, and very supportive. So I think that what they're trying to do, it's really valuable. And I found myself, starting with the role of prototyper, still as a prototyper. Um, but it's a little bit, um, how can I describe? Prototyper describe the role of like bringing an idea to life for the first time, which is incredible and amazing. I love to be in that role. But also the company is trying to bring those ideas to a more like scalable and productionized level, and I'm also participating in that process. So definitely learning a lot through this experience and growing with very incredible engineers and designers. Yeah.
Got it. And when you describe prototype engineer, like, do you like are like working with set of companies and developing use cases, programs, or templates for them? Or like, if you can describe like a day in your life, how does it look like?
But I mean, as a company reserved as Magic Leap, I don't think you can like reveal so much. I'm always like a little bit, to be honest,
Yeah, yeah.
scared of you to what I can say and what I cannot say, because there are things that you don't want to reveal. But I can give you like an overview. Like my main platform of work is Unity. So I
Hmm.
like to work in Unity. You can decide also to work in other things, but I feel like Unity is the standard now for a good 80% of the industry that is trying to do that stuff. And I have the chance to collaborate with people that are more like designing oriented, so more like design, trying to frame ideas, and these ideas could be part of applications or could be part of the operating system of Magic Leap, like goes both directions. And you take those ideas, you empower them, and you let them eventually doing something on their own, or you just take that material and you try to build a proof of concept for that. And then there is a further step that is with people that have a high level profile, technical profile, which is started to be the implementation of what you built. And sometimes you support them in a higher percentage, and sometimes in a less, depending on the project. But it's definitely a role that bridges two things. And I couldn't be more happy to be in this position, right? Because of all of my career and all of what I tried to do from the beginning. So I think that really kind of describes what my what my goal wanted to be in the beginning, that is bridging like two things and bringing things to life. Yeah.
Yeah, like a couple of weeks ago, like I interviewed someone working at 8 Wall, and he had an architecture background, and he's doing like AR
Oh,
prototyping and applications for them. So I think like I could see this emerging trend where we could use the knowledge of architecture, get that creative freedom, use XR VR development skills, and like start like because we know the problem space, we know how to work with client, we can like use that skill set and domain expertise to make this application specific to clients. And like prototype engineer is like a really good role, like a lot of architects could uh, uh, find themselves in the industry. Yeah.
I agree.
uh, i i I have a question about if you can walk through one of your project, and I have a YouTube video so I can parallelly share on the screen, and if you want to like
If it's on my channel, yeah, definitely. If it's something related to me, I think it's not a
yes,
problem.
the AWE.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that was an overview on the virtual keyboard. I'm in the second part of that talk, so I think you need to push through a little bit because this is a wildfire presentation. So yeah, this was an overview on a tool that I've been working for some time, and is really just like a text input in AR. The virtual keyboard comes with a lot of challenges. You might think, just a keyboard, and but it needs to work in a lot of different situations, differently from the keyboard that we have, on our laptops, that is stable there, it's not moving. It's like solid things that you're pressing with your hands. uh, you might have like different way to interact with it in AR. You can move it around. You can just like use your in the future using hands or doing ray interactions, because you have a pointer in AR and VR. And and you also need to take into account that you need to build that there are certain things, like for example, on the phone we do, for example, double tap for certain
Hmm.
keys, for having some, for maintaining the uppercase stable, for example. um, would you see the same in AR? I don't know, because you can still definitely double tap, but the feeling is totally different. Like, it's not that rewarding because you're tapping in the air. And also, definitely, how can you make this kind of like interaction feel good, rewarding? Like, you're almost, there are some techniques, right? Like some visual feedback you can work on to make that interaction feeling very, very good. And uh, and yeah, we're working on that side. Like, for example, making animations, going with the input distance, so like verifying like really like what's the distance of your body to the keyboard, and having all of those. There are all of these kind of small features that put together makes you feel very rewarded when you're typing. So in this presentation, I try to present all of the strategy we are going through. And like you say, there is like a sort of like a hybrid interactor that is a direct interactor, which is the first step towards something that is more like direct interaction. Um, if you ever used HoloLens, without talking about competitors, it's a great device which allows you to um, type into a keyboard with your fingers. And they have like very specific ways to do it. And you can see that there are some strategies, right? Like, they lights up things when you get in the proximity of them. They have like, they set up some standard from the industry, like these
Hmm.
MRTK tools. They really set up some standards. So we are giving our interpretation of things. I think this is This is quite different from what I've seen around. I think there are some strategies that I really didn't see around under the hood, how you're targeting things, how you are defining some behaviors, the fact that you can have multiple inputs in the same tool. It's also a part why I think Magic Leap is so, to me, special, because it's like very open to accommodate a lot of different solutions. So um, yeah, this has been a lot of interaction, and it seems like that's the slide to the. I think this probably is one of the main points of the work, because you are kind of defining, you're tracking wherever is your input, and you are allowing the keys to animate with the position of your input. So you feel that, like when you're going in and you're
Mhm.
pushing with your finger, like it's really rewarding, like it's, or not with the finger in this case, actually, it's like with the pointer, which is tied to the controller. So
Yep.
it's tracked by the controller. But the feeling that want to transpose here is like when you're pressing the key in any way you do it, like it needs to have a reaction which is very much tailored to the experience you're doing. So we're trying to put all of these things together and building a best in class AR experience for text. So
This is super cool. Does this also like fall in like human computer interaction discipline, like the haptic response and how you design the whole UI UX, spatial UI UX?
absolutely, I think that's probably one of the main focus of the work.
It's amazing. And my next question is like, what are the vision you have like XR industry 10 years from now? How are you gonna live?
So I think that it will keep being expanded in very specific scenarios. I'm not bullish on the fact that it's gonna replace something like smartphone very soon, because that could take like a generation of changes, in my opinion. Um, I think there are things that are very convenient in doing with glasses, and I can see the potential of doing that. For example, I made apps myself where I can expand my screen, and I can see, like, instead of literally buying physically a screen, I just bring my laptop everywhere I want to work. I put these glasses on, and I can see like three screens, and I can move them, scale them, continuing to work in a hybrid way from virtual to physical. I think that's very powerful, and uh, allow you to work everywhere with a certain specific setup, uh, just with using glasses, for example. Or we see a lot of. I was talking with these developers that they were building some AR instructions application, which with object recognition, they can recognize parts of a machinery in having very specific instruction for that specific machinery. If that machinery it's very very complicated, that process would replace the fact that you need to go through a manual, online or not online, or a 3D visualization. So it will still like detach you from the machinery and let you go somewhere else, looking for information, going back there. Meanwhile, I think that having an app that can layer on top of your machinery and having those kind of toggles of information on and off and tells you everything, it would be quite a better way to do anything you need to do with that machinery. So that's also an application that I see growing in time. Uh, Healthcare as well, like like surgeons and things, like they need like a lot of screens around them, like to see details. Like you need a very detailed things. Like you want to have a 3D visualization of what you're working on as well in real time, and I think recently Magically published also this video regarding wildfire. They made this application as kind of seeing in real time how the fire expands. So let's say I can imagine myself in, like, um, you have some kind of IoT devices spread around the forest, which, uh, for example, receive heat and can update in real time Unity visualization of the hill picking fire. And just because of that representation of those devices inside of your visualization tool, you have like a very real time understanding of things that are going on, and you can manage all of the maneuvers for saving people or just like turning off the fire in the most efficient way possible. And it could also not just give you that, but like gather an array of data that would make things better in time. So I think that there are so many things that could be done, and starting also from architecture, that seeing like overlay in your space. AR and VR are very spatial, so there is this kind of like understanding. There's so many opportunities that I think they will keep developing and getting more detailed in the next uh, 5 to 10 years. The hardware will definitely get smaller. I can envision also that. I don't know when it's going to be the moment that like it's so small that people are just gonna just use it, because I feel like also everyone is like, okay, it's like if it's turned into glasses, everyone is gonna use it as well. There are a lot of my friends who don't even use glasses. So what about that, right? Like you cannot force everyone to use glasses, but you can say to someone to use glasses in a certain scenario if they want to do something specific. So it could be like a percentage of your day that is because it's so much better doing things in that way. Um, it could allow you to open your laptop, which I would be very happy to do, because staring at any long hours, to be honest, it's not a great experience overall. And everything we do today really requires you to be on the screen. So there are a lot of use cases that I hope that they grow and they become more and more adopted.
Yeah, these are like super interesting. Like I was just wondering when you mentioned about IoT real time, and it's like, oh, it's gonna become like with like Moore's law, like compute on the edge is getting so faster. Like a lot of people are doing like AI inference right at the like glass level, and if we have that combined with real time data, I'm getting like real time AI recommendations. It's super cool. I know you mentioned about like some roadblocks already, like for the building industry. Any recommendations on how we could increase adoption in the industry of this immersive technologies?
Well, it really depends what's the niche that you are trying to target. I think that there should be so for if you really look into how architecture firms are structured or engineering firms are structured, I think there just should be definitely someone designated to work on that, and only on that, not just side, a hobby from 5 to 7 after work, or from 7 to 8, or in the weekend. Like it should be really like a role defined in the industry. So defining a role, I think, is the first step to go in that direction, because you have someone that is focusing full time on that and is researching and is up to date with what's going on and can make the best decisions of what you want to adopt. And in terms of the adoption of AR and VR, of course, you need to buy that hardware. So you need to have like a range of hardware that you can buy in certain different ways. So associate budget to it. And when you have that hardware, uh, the other thing you need to do is like cross-platform compatibility between the things that you build and how you deploy them. So that's probably third step that you want to go through, like trying to build an app that you're interested in to solve your purpose, and then like trying to having on different devices and maybe sending those devices to your clients so they can visualize it. It can be initially an add-on, and then with time becomes more of a kind of a firm point that you always provide, and maybe differentiates you from other firms. And yeah, having really in the end, this is really much of an investment on in that area. And I wish that there could be like a sort of budget that goes in that direction. I know that this is a little challenging for architecture studios to see things this way, because like it's there is a different economy that drives the profession. But I'm also not too. I can't really talk for everyone, because it's
Mhm.
just like I have relatively limited experiences inside of the practice. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Now, moving on to the final section about advice to students and professional. Uh, can you share a bit how you prepared for this role? How you got the job? Because that's a part I don't often see online. How to get that? So.
Definitely. So yeah, I was in the same situation. I was like, how to do this? I know Unity, but it's that really enough? The first thing that I think a lot of architecture students face when apply for a technical role is the fact that they have a portfolio which is very architecture oriented. So um, I think if you build, like if you apply, let's say for a role at Meta, Snapchat, Microsoft, Magically, uh, Samsung, any just bring in anyone that is trying to look into AR and VR majorly. Um, they certainly, like, if they're hiring for an interaction level job, like you, I think it's counterproductive showing a portfolio where you are showing foundation detailed drawings of a building. Like, let's be honest. If you um, you need to you need to create a portfolio, which is a portfolio of interest for them, because they need to hire you and spend money on you, because you need to be an asset for them. So be humble in really trying to be honest with yourself, and say, and be initially in a position where you just want to learn things as well. Like, I think that it's every time I approach it something I didn't know, and I got the job anyway, even if maybe I was not uh, the most qualified person. They would see my willing to say, okay, I'm down. Let's do that. You just want me to do it? I will Google it. I think you can always Google it. So uh, what I did for me was, the pandemic gave me the chance to kind of take a break and say, okay, like, what am I really interested in? Like, I have a lot of projects on my portfolio about AR, but what am I really trying to achieve? So I created a website in the, and this took a while. I think it took, like, this process around like 1 or 2 years, because I kind of like slowly trying to say, okay, let's just try to track all of my work in AR and see if, like, to go into certain topics and trying to put them there, and go deeper in that. So I say, okay, I want to make a game. So let's try to make a game. I want to make an architecture application, because I'm in architecture, it comes easy. So I'm going to make an application. I want to know how to publish it. I want to learn how to deal with the client that asks me an application. So I've been lucky that a guy reached me out for a guy reached me out of nothing. I think it was a LinkedIn message, like kind of you with me, and he was like, "Hey, you do the AR app?" And I was like, "Yes, I do. And so he was like, I need this, I need that. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, we can try. So I was like, okay, so let's take this chance to learn two or three things. I want to learn how to make an application that has a login, that can gather data online, that I can visualize data online, that I can deploy on different platforms, that I can publish on the Apple Store and Android Store. Let's see how to do it. So I took that project as a kind of learning more things. And same thing, another person came to me and was like, I know you did the AR stuff at SciArc, so I'm doing my thesis project, but I want to do something a little bit more extra. I want to make a game and then publish this game in some, I want to make a real game, so I don't know how to do it. I wanted to ask you, so I was like, sure thing, let's try to make a game. So go there and just like figure out stuff, and making a game I think is incredible because it gives you like a full spectrum of the use of Unity, because Unity, the heart and essence of Unity is in gaming, so it's really well made for that. And another thing that I was very interested, I saw a lot of filters on Instagram and stuff, and I was like, how this guy made filters? Let's just see how they do it. So it turns out that there is a Spark AR, there is FLectHouse, TikTok, there is Studio Lens, Snapchat. So learn those three and see how it works. And really just like this process kept going until I arrived to sort of like 10, 12 projects. There was pretty a lot of material that I tried to filter and display in a very interesting way. And I tried to really highlight the things that I wanted to understand more. For example, and then like starting to mix and match all of these projects comes out something new, right? Like as well, I think they invited me to a conference in China and for all this like architecture based work. And they were like, we would like to explore AR. We don't have like a very specific, like topic, but like a friend of mine, like she's a PhD at USC. Her name is Diana. She's amazing. Um, I could describe her as a AR researcher because she knows everything about XR history and all of things like that. So I was like, wow, like you know a lot about the history of things. So let's make an app with your knowledge. And I'm more hands-on person. Let's just try to make it. So we did this workshop in China for urban. Uh, it was called Urban Mixed Realities, and we did this app that would kind of recognize billboards around the city and create experience on those billboards and like have like um, experiences that were very much related to point of interest around the city. So, for example, if you wanted to, uh, it's a very specific urban scenario in China. They have all of these kind of big billboards, very lights up. It's like very cool, and you just walk around on those sidewalks that are elevated on top of the street, and you get to see these billboards like literally 10 meters away from you, which is like crazy. So I was like, okay, let's do image tracking and see what happened there. So they did something like that. A lot of students started to investigate that, and they created some apps also for the city. So it became like recycling. It became advertisement for shops. It became advertisement for theaters. It became historical itineraries application. So that gave me so much material to work on as well. So yeah, it was a lot of different things that I was like. Meanwhile, I'm working as an architect and designer and studying. I want to explore these things and push myself to learn something new. After some time, I tried to display everything in a very interesting way at my best abilities and going through the interview process, which is also very technical. So it requires a part of the time dedicated in very much solving coding challenges. So you need to do that. And then like you start your process of application, and you hope and you pray God that something goes right.
I
Yeah.
see. That's incredible. So it's like typical like tech interviews where they have like HR round, coding round, technical round, and then you get the application. Like And I've seen a like often like the recommendations if someone is working in the company helps like in like shortlisting, but it's also rare to find any architects background people working in this big companies. So even to get that recommendation is a bit challenging.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't, when I applied for Magic Leap, I really didn't have any recommendation inside of the company. So I think that it was a great match for the role description. I think the role description is probably the most important piece of information you can have for applying to a job. Like, it's really like a checkbox, a list of boxes that you need to check and in your learning process. And then if you already have something that relates to that, like that's a good plus because you can use what something you already have, or you have something that is slightly related to that. You can just take it and shape it in a different way when you're presenting it. Like the role description was very much what I've been doing until that point. My main mission in that process was really just like proving that I did it or proving how I did it and eventually adding more the most I could do. So um, yeah, it's definitely a different process from an architecture firm's interview. So very, very different. I would say radically different. So no parallels between the two.
I see.
Yes.
Yeah, like on a side note, like when you were mentioning about your presentation in AR, I think it might have been like a different scenario post pandemic because now everyone was giving virtual presentations, so it might have received differently. But even like that, that's a good point you mentioned about role description. Like if a student is graduating 1 year from now, that role description can help. Okay, what are some side projects or weekend things, collaboration they can do for the upcoming year to get those 5 6 projects in the portfolio, which makes them eligible for that job.
Absolutely. This is for me. It's probably um, it's something I really try to say to a lot of students that come to me and ask me, similar questions. I'm like, don't really think about like think about what you want to do after school, and even if it sounds very basic as a suggestion, try to stick to some like select let's say 9 or 10 role descriptions that you really like and try to stick to those and try to prove yourself to be someone that can cover those roles. If you don't know something, it's fine. You have time enough to learn it and you need to take it not like oh my gosh I didn't know that, like you need to take it more like cool, I'm gonna learn something new that I didn't know before. So just go always long. This is my suggestion. Go long term. Don't try to rush it and say, "Oh my gosh, I have 1 month. I need to learn like all of hacker rank solutions, and I need to read like 10 books." Most likely that won't lead you to a good result. Or let's say you get the job and you are required to do certain tasks and you cannot achieve those things. So that's gonna be like very bad on you, right? Like it's gonna burn your career kind of. So you want to take it long term and really like build your own interest. And I don't think it's easy to understand also what you like really. So that's also a big long process that in my opinion you shouldn't rush. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing which personally helped me to accelerate the learning was attending hackathons. And I know
Oh
MIT XR hackathon is like really good, and I've seen some amazing projects. So that's also a good way to meet other colleagues and learn from each other and share ideas.
yeah, hackathons. I attended so many, and I recommend it to everyone. It's so much fun. You meet new people. Those new people might be your new colleagues one day. Uh, Incredible experiences that I strongly recommend. By the way.
Easy. And like for students interested in this area, like is there any checklist they should follow, like step by step way or recipe to get into the XR space?
Yeah, I tried to make a list also in the document and share with you, but we can. I mean, I can leave some references written for you. You can just like leave it in the comments. But so definitely, uh, for me, something that really helped me was Unity Learn, which is the main platform of learning for Unity. I think Unreal has something similar as well. Um, uh, I think that it really helps subdividing to me the learning process in two phases. The first one is more to me like a foundation of things, like an overview of things you can see. And the second one instead is like a more project based approach, where you say, okay, I want to do that. I want to, like you just make your own checklist of things. I want to make a game where you are on a boat and you are like going from island A to island B, and across this path you're gonna fight 10 enemies. Just something as simple as that. I think that uh, it's easy to give you direction because it kind of starts to make a list of questions like, okay, how to set up Unity first, and how to create something that is moving with inputs, how to create an AI person that is moving around the space and is kind of simulating some actions, how to track the life of the character. And all of those things are things that can be ported to making like a professional app on something else, right? If you want to make an enterprise app that makes instruction, you can say, oh, let's how many instruction the user went through at this time, at this point in time during the application. So how to time that. No, all of these things are very interchangeable. So definitely learning like foundation, and then I would say application, project based approach. That's it.
Yeah, I'll definitely add all the learning resources and links in the YouTube description. Uh, is there any question you never get asked but you would like to answer?
Um, Definitely. So uh, I don't know if you are if you're born in US or you're international.
I'm
Uh,
international, yeah, Indian, yeah.
so I am, and I like there is some process you need to go through as an international worker that I think that people should really be informed about. And it's very important because it's determining of your career and your steps and the timing between one employment to the other one. I had like a quite long experience for the O1 visa, for example. Um, in It went wrong the first time, then it went good the second time, fortunately. Otherwise, maybe I wouldn't be here in the West at this
Okay.
time. But there are like things that I think I wish I wouldn't have. I would have like a checklist in that sense. Like what do I have to do for getting this visa, and how, and what are the things that I should look into. Uh, I think that as an international, I would have loved to have more guidance on that side because it takes a lot of your time, and like it takes away time from you to learn other stuff and like having progress your career in every instance. And I created also a Discord group uh, that I shared on the same link, and I recreated this morning because after so many questions I received on the line of this interview, I thought there was time to share with more, and
Nice.
having like more centralized way to provide feedback on all of the topics that you just faced. So I shared it with you. It's called Everything Everywhere XR, and you can just see the link in the document I sent you.
Awesome. That's great. Definitely everyone watching this video should join the Discord. It's one of the best way to keep in touch. And like you mentioned a very important point because for H1B visa or the visa, your work should be aligned with the degree you pursued. So if you're like going in other industry or roles, it becomes a area where you need to do your own research. How do you navigate the space? So it's a very crucial point, and the company should sponsor your visa. That's another thing, and so it's great that you brought that point because it's also not very often talked about. Yeah.
Yeah, like you
Uh,
said.
Sorry,
No, sorry,
continue.
you didn't want. No, no worries, no worries. It's basically what you just said.
Yeah. So how can our viewers follow you?
Uh, I have different socials. Twitter probably is the most tech oriented. I keep posting about, and is my first name and last name. On every social, I'm the same. It's very basic. So on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, I'm always Alessio Grancini. Not changing. So if you can just type my name, you're gonna probably find me on social.
Awesome. I have a rapid fire round to wrap up the interview. So I'll have like 10 seconds to answer it and gotta make it very brief. Okay. So which cities are in your travel bucket list?
Oh, okay. So I definitely want to travel to Japan. Like that's really the. I was about to go um, during this year, but I know that now they closed it and they are almost reopening it now. So it was very complicated understanding what was the modality to get there, and I was really wishing to go there. I didn't explore a lot of the east of the world, and I'm really interested in the next part of my career and life to explore more of that because I never had a chance. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Is there
Japan,
any?
definitely China again. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Is there any technical or business book which made a big impact in your life?
Technical business book. Um, well, there are definitely. I try to. There is this one, in my opinion, which is very, very interesting. Is called the cold sore problem by Andrew Chan. And let me see if I pronounce the name of the cold, cold start problem. Sorry. So it's called the cold start problem: how to start and scale. Um, I think network, how to start and scale network. So he's like a person that like really is being involved in the creation of multiple business like Uber, and then talks about how Tinder is born, like multiple social media that became very popular and used also today. And he talks about that kind of point in the graph where you need to maintain interest across your community, because we often forget that without audience, these apps won't be what they are, right? Like, can you imagine Facebook without anyone using it? Like, what if in a utopic world, someone says, "Today we stop using it," but you can't, because the truth is that it's so interconnected into your layers of life, which it would be pretty inconvenient for you. It would be almost isolating yourself, missing out, on things. So um, I thought that was very interesting because communication is the foundation of technology as well, and I thought that that book really open. It's very open-minded. Yeah,
Hmm,
yeah,
interesting.
it's very nice.
Yeah. What's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie. I have many. um, I think one that I keep going back um, is this one called Being John Malkovich. Have you ever seen it?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, so it's very. I think it's very old. Um, but yeah, I like the fact that 99. There you go. So it's very old. But I loved it because first of all, I love the style of like how this office and like all of the space condition that these characters are in is very bizarre and very unusual. And then it's, I can say it's very, very timely in terms of shared experiences in AR and VR, because it really puts the spectator to the point of view of the observer. Also, there is this kind of like interface that they try to simulate. It's kind of like a round, like point of view of the main observer, and that reminds me, like for example, what Snapchat did some years ago with those glasses that remind that kind of like uh, kind of record all of your days and stories. So I thought that was really much of a throwback. I was like, oh, that looks the same, you know. So that was very, very crazy. So that definitely a very interesting movie for me. Yeah,
Got it. Who's your role model?
my role model. Um, Let me think. Uh, there are multiple. I think I keep going back and forth between more of a, like I like all of those people that are in positions where uh, they can have a grasp of technology, but also of direction, product, and business. Uh, so role model. Ha, I don't want to become political here because there are people that respect people and people that don't respect people. But um, let's say let's keep it very, let's keep it in my org and Magic Leap, because it's where I am now, and I think there are very, very, very talented people that are changing the world, and they are very low key doing it, and I respect that so much. So like I think my manager has a great respect on my side because he's very talented and very casual at the same time. Like he's a person that solves very harsh problems, but at the same time, he's like very chill about it. So I love those people that are like, oh, they can be wizards in some times of the day, and others just be normal people. And it's incredible to see those kind of people. Yeah,
Hmm. What's your favorite Italian restaurant
in US or in Italy?
all over the world? Like,
Well, I don't think you would know the one in Italy because I come from a very small town, and definitely in that town are my favorite. And but in I think in if you are in the Los Angeles area, I think this one called Pasta Sister. It's probably one of my favorite. It's very, very authentic, very good Italian food.
nice.
So I recommend it if you're in the area to go there. This is very good.
Got it. Is there anything which most people don't know about you but will be surprised if you share?
Oh, these interviews is becoming a lot of fun. I wish I could have more of this. Uh, um, well, let's put it this way. I think like a lot of people, this could actually increase that this could bring hope to people. So I try to put it in a very positive way. So I started my career actually when I was very, very young as a soccer player. So that was my very first goal as a kid. Growing up in Italy is very common. My dad was a great fan of Milan AC. So he brought me
Uh,
all of his passion and all of his, and things were going pretty well. I played until I was 20, and I played in pro soccer leagues, and I was really playing, like I thought that was my career from then. And I got to a point where I saw that the salary, I thought that I was like it's good, but not enough to be, those multimillionaire soccer players that you're used to see on the news every day. Because it's very competitive. The truth is that it's very competitive. There's very talented, enormously talented players. So at a certain point, I was like, this has been great. I gave all of myself to this, but I think I'm gonna go study. Then I stopped and I would say pivot my whole life in the sense of I have very rare time to focus on studies before. I was an okay student because of sport. There were like 6 times a week training, and it was very, very taking a lot of time for your for your life to. You didn't have time to study quite a lot. But then I was like, okay, I need to focus on this very much, and I said, okay, I'm gonna pivot to being a student now. I'm
I
happy
see.
about
Like
that.
I this is actually I'm surprised. This is like so like we could expect a VR AR soccer game from you in future.
Oh, that would be incredible. Why not? Yeah, esports are growing, so I think XR sport. I've seen a lot of Twitter posts about some emerging companies that are doing this. Yesterday I was really actually walking in an area in San Francisco where there is this sandbox VR uh, shop where you kind of go inside and you sign up for experiences. It was fully booked. Uh, there is like a lot of different pods with different like experiences that go from sport to like movies, immersive movies, like immersive activities. I was very, very impressed. I was like, wow, this is really, really like it's not a future, it's here, and a lot of people are signing up for this stuff like in real life. So yeah, yeah, definitely. If there is some good if there is some good overlap there, I would be happy. Yeah.
Awesome. I wish this interview could go on, but because there are a lot of interesting thoughts, but keeping in mind the time, is there anything you would like to share to wrap up the interview? Your last thoughts?
Not really. Just like, as many other students, I think if they are afraid of their career or what they are the next step, I think I really was in the same situation. I was like, how can I pivot and how can I do what I like and where should I start? So if you would like to talk to me or um, join the Discord group, I would be very happy to provide my advice and everything I learned in the process, and also learning something new from newer generation because things change very quickly. So I think that loop of talking and receiving feedback is also very valuable in many instances.
Awesome. And like if you are currently working in XR from architecture, maybe you can also share your story at Everything Everywhere XR Discord so the people can also learn like from your stories. So I must admit like this was like super insightful interview. Like it's very inspiring to see how you made those decisions and how you progressed in your career because gives very high hopes to a lot more people in architecture who wants to pursue this path. So uh, thanks again for your time to do this. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks to you for inviting me. Honored. Thank you.
Okay, have a great weekend. Bye bye.
Bye bye.